Welcome to Service Titans, the podcast where we dive deep into the inspiring journeys of Black men within the AmeriCorps community. From serving in classrooms to rebuilding neighborhoods, these are the stories of passion, purpose, and resilience. Join us as we amplify the voices of members of the AmeriCorps community and share their triumphs, challenges, and the impact they've made in their communities. Whether you're a seasoned AmeriCorps veteran or someone considering service, this is the space to explore, reflect, and be inspired. Get ready to be uplifted, empowered, and connected. This is Service Titans.
What up, though? This is Service Titans, the show where we discuss the stories, experiences, and insights of remarkable individuals who are making a difference in their communities and beyond. I'm your host, Anton Taylor, and on today's episode, our guest is Q. But Q goes beyond just a name. Nevertheless, this person is someone whose career is a testament to the power of strategic partnerships and community-driven change. He currently serves as the Assistant Director of Corporate and Foundation Relationships, where he forges impactful partnerships to drive meaningful initiatives. With nearly a decade at Communities in Service in the Los Angeles area, he has worked to ensure that students facing systemic barriers receive the support they need to thrive. He's an AmeriCorps alum and a true champion of service. Q, thank you so much for taking time to join the podcast.
Really happy to be here. Thanks for that kind introduction.
No problem there, brother. I want to kind of start with just going a little bit more in depth into your career pathway. Would you mind sharing a little bit about both, like, what inspired your career journey, particularly how it's rooted in service and nonprofit leadership? Were there particular moments that solidified it for you? I know there's just like some moments in our lives where you just kind of have that aha moment. I would love to hear a little bit of both about your pathway and some of the things that maybe inspired you along that pathway.
I don't know necessarily dreams or visions of working in nonprofit or anything like that. It just kind of happened that way. I'm a product of nonprofits, grew up, at Boys and Girls type club places from White Plains. And we had the White Plains Youth Bureau, and I was there pretty much every weekend, every other day after school, participating in a lot of activities and things. I guess your introduction to what nonprofits are and what that whole thing is, at that age around, I was from like 8 to pretty much going to college. But I do think just in your work, you're a camp counselor, you're working with kids, and then I was working at an SAT program, and I think that's when the light bulb went off where nonprofit could be a career path. It combined a lot of things that I like to do. And this was on the programmatic side of things, really, where I like to work with kids. I like to plan things. I like to, do a little bit of tutoring, mentoring, and all those kinds of things. And so nonprofit is kind of the perfect place to employ all those skills. I will say that I think for me, where the real light bulb went off was probably at like my first fundraising event, where it was, people will give me money to do the things for the people that need it if I can tell a good story. And so I think that's really where the light bulb went off for me, where it's like, hey, I'm really good at that storytelling and talking to people thing. And I didn't know that that was a part of nonprofit. I'll be honest with you. I thought that the real movie that kind of moved me towards that was Thank You for Smoking. I don't know if people are familiar with that. Aaron Eckhart plays a tobacco lobbyist. And in one of the scenes, he turns the audience against essentially the truth.com people by saying tobacco doesn't want people to die. Truth wants people to die so that they can go for their... And it was just the idea that somebody could take a cancer patient and make them the symbol of the tobacco company. And obviously this was a movie and everything like that.
Mm-hmm.
But to me, it was, oh no, if you can tell a story, then people will get behind it. Now, so I get that works a lot of different ways, but if there are people working on the side of the people that can tell good stories, I do think it could be impactful.
Man, that's, it's interesting. It definitely speaks to the power of story and being able to share and articulate a vision. And as you mentioned, you can take that in so many different ways. I appreciate you for kind of sharing where that inspiration comes from. And for me, it's just a reminder that there are a variety of different avenues, that there can be things that sort of speak to you. You never know how that can serve as somewhat of an inspiration. But then also you mentioned the impact that nonprofits can have on you as a young person. And sometimes you don't recognize that's a little bit later in life. Hugh, I know you spent a lot of your time at Communities and Schools, which is a AmeriCorps program. Can you speak a little bit about that component of your career? And I know how impactful both AmeriCorps is and Communities and Schools is in particularly supporting Black and Brown students. Like, I would love to learn a little bit more about that experience and what that meant to you along your pathway.
I got placed there right after college. My first time really being away from home. Again, from New York, went to Syracuse and out in LA, on an AmeriCorps stipend. And so as you can imagine,
It's real.
yeah, like life comes at you fast, and you think to yourself like, maybe I should have took one of those jobs that my friends took, and everything like that. But I will say that in that year, I think you learn a lot about yourself, and you learn so much about yourself while you're trying to help other people. You can't help from learn from other people. I think that's where you get those deep inroads where it's very hard to look at a family that is not making a lot of money, who's having trouble getting their kids to school and not really, really relate.
Right.
I mean, because I think as an AmeriCorps, there were times I had to choose between eating or trying to, sneak on the bus. And oftentimes it was, I'm going to eat and I'll just sneak on the bus, because I don't have an extra $1.75 today kind of thing. And I think when you're going through those real things as a 20-something and talking to families that are doing that same thing, and there's an inherent knowledge of yourself that knows that, well, this is just a stepping stone for me, and for
But
other
real,
people,
it's real.
how do I inspire other people to feel like I feel, even though the reality of my day to day is, am I going to eat or am I going to take the long way to work? Kind of thing. And knowing that that's a actual conversation that kids have to have with themselves in the morning, so that when we all get to the same place and it's, oh no, I know why you're tired. Come on, take a walk with me, kind of thing. And I think when you kind of understand it from that angle, like you realize that the nonprofit world isn't so disconnected from the for-profit world. So like when you start to see all those things, it makes it easier to kind of do the work and to really get deep into the work, I think.
Yeah, as an AmeriCorps alum myself, and I think it's such a poignant aspect of that you highlighted, is that as you're helping others, it's so much of an internal piece there that you're both learning about yourself, but also that caveat of understanding that this may be a stepping stone. In a lot of instances, it is a stepping stone for AmeriCorps members, but the reality that is day to day for, unfortunately, so many of the students and communities that we work with. So I thank you for just sharing that real story. And also from an AmeriCorps experience, sometimes it's between eating and jumping on the bus. So you're painting that picture. I appreciate that. As you talk about some of the challenges, particularly, and I know most of our audience are Black men who are either experiencing their career journey or considering starting a career pathway under this nonprofit sector, AmeriCorps umbrella, however you frame it. Would you mind speaking to some of the challenges that you faced in your career? And particularly from my experience in the funding and partnership space, there's not as much representation that is appropriate, particularly when we speak about the stories of our community and that are impacting our community. Would you mind speaking to that, Q, if there are any challenges that you've had taken time to reflect on or continue to sort of persevere through now as a Black man in the nonprofit sector, particularly being on the forefront of funding and partnerships?
That's interesting. And maybe this is just the way that I view the world. I mean, maybe this is just that New Yorker in me, is that I kind of find it as a niche. It's a nice little niche for me, right? Is that there aren't a lot of Black men that do fundraising. And there aren't a lot of Black men that speak on behalf of underrepresented communities that aren't just Black communities at that, I would say. Because I think, and I mean, there's nothing wrong with that, but I think when you think about Black men that are in general fundraising spaces and not necessarily just Black fundraising spaces for per se or something to that extent, I think that no, there is not a lot of us. And again, so I find that as my niche. I find that as a way to be unique, to support the communities that I know need support, especially my own, but at the same time being able to do it in a way that is fluid. You kind of brought this up earlier, just the climate of the world, right? Or the climate of, I had a conversation with somebody yesterday. I can't reveal any real details, but they were somebody that works in the government space, and we were trying to partner with them for something. And the extent of the conversation was, we'd love to, but you understand what's going on right now. We can't really do anything. And understanding that that's going to be a challenge moving forward, is how do you talk about fundraising for the people that need it most, and nobody, where there's literal laws about not helping the people that need it most. And so, again, not to necessarily take that off of myself, but again, like as a Black man, I think that's my niche. I think if a Black man shows up talking about helping trans communities, helping Black communities, helping Latino communities, I think there's power in that. I've never felt that I have not got money because I was Black. Is like, that's something I can fully say. Now, I fully feel like I haven't got money because of the community I was trying to get money for, but I don't think that had anything to do with me per se. Oh man, that's interesting. This Black guy that works for this thing, like, yeah, I met him at a networking event. He's cool. That gets me in the room, but then it's, oh, I don't know if we really help those people kind of thing. That happens sometimes as well, but I really haven't necessarily felt held back, or I always try to use it as my secret weapon, if you will.
No, I appreciate you for sharing that there can be times where the energy can move towards a more holding back sort of perspective, and understanding that, as you've shared, that through your perspective, you've seen how that has kind of created a niche and an opportunity for you to continue to have those avenues to share those stories that impact communities across the country. So I really appreciate you for like sharing that. And I know also with that, what I feel is like really important, this idea of role modeling and mentorship and uplifting others. And as you talked a little bit about representation in that space, is that something that's important to you, Q, as you progressed in your career? Have there been opportunities, or is it something that you seek to prioritize, helping to support other, young people just in general, and particularly young Black men who may want to have an opportunity to create that niche for themselves, or want to have this desire to want to be in a fundraising space? Any thoughts around that?
Yeah, it's one of those, I didn't know fundraising was a career until I was fundraising. And
I love it.
there is a part of me that knows that, man, there are so many other people younger than me, young Black men, that have way better personalities, that are way more outgoing, way more interesting, and all those things. But I don't even think they think about this as a career path. I mean, if we're being honest, they're probably more interested in doing something more forward facing all the time, and there's nothing wrong with those things. So I think in terms of, I would love to see more young Black men in this space to that extent. Like, always try to do career days, always try to make sure talking to students about possible career paths. Because I think, again, when you think about nonprofit, it's like, I think that the story of nonprofit gets a bad rap sometimes. I think the story of work gets a bad rap sometimes.
Yeah.
And if we all agree that work sucks on some level because you have to do it, right? But because you have to do it, and you're trying to figure out what's going to be good for you. But I think nonprofit specifically is burnout. Right? Oh, you're going to get burnt out. You're going to get burnt out. And you're going to get burnt out, and you're not making a lot of money. Because at least on the for-profit side, if you're working in tech or, finance, it's, they're going to burn you out, but you're going to be a millionaire kind of thing. And so you can register that trade-off, and fine, I work 80 hours a week, but I'll be able to do whatever I want when I'm not at work. Versus the nonprofit, it's not told in that, it's not the same story.
It's a different narrative.
And I think you and I both know, like, no, you can make yourself a living, have nice things for yourself and for your family, travel, do all those things with a nonprofit career. But if nobody's telling anybody that, so I think when I think about young Black men, it's people like you, it's people like me that have to just keep being that example. And I think it's also one of those, I don't know how you make fundraising a sexy career. It's not necessarily going to be one of those things that's always going to be at the forefront of what people are thinking about doing. But for me, it's talking to those kids that have that, I want to help. I think that's pretty much where you can start, right? If you are a kid that's like, hey, I want to help, but I don't necessarily want to be a doctor. because I don't want to cut people open and I don't want to be a nurse because I'm not into blood and everything like that. I think that if you can find those kids early enough, then, developing these skills. Because I think, again, I didn't know I was fundraising until I was fundraising, but I had always been developing those skills of talking to people, of relating to people, storytelling, and things like that. So I think it's part of this is, and sorry for rambling, but part of this is developing a skill set that is transferable and identifying those skills. Like I think storytelling is something that anybody can learn. And so it's like, if you are somebody that's looking to help, like, I think storytelling is a skill set that we should be teaching those kids. So I think, again, in terms of young Black men that are looking to this space, you're not going to probably see a lot of faces because we are doing a lot of the work, and that doesn't land us on TV or TikTok or whatever the case might be. But if you are a young Black man that is interested in helping, it's like, I would say develop that storytelling skill, because that's going to be a really powerful thing no matter what you end up doing.
A couple of times you sort of highlighted the fact that you didn't quite put the finger on the word fundraising, but you're doing it. And it also just relates to, in life, there's so many skills that we pick up and may not have a label per se to put on them, and we take for granted. And I think one of the things I would say personally in my nonprofit career is being able to sort of identify how those skills I've learned along the way sort of correlate to a career pathway. So I'm so in agreement, and thank you for sort of sharing that point. But it also speaks to me, like, around this, you mentioned around the idea of work and what has become sort of looked at in a bad way in some spaces, but also this undercurrent of around the idea of service. And I know, for one, I grew up in a family where that was at the forefront. So it wasn't second guessed as much as it maybe could be in some families where that isn't a part of that foundation, as you talk about sort of growing up in nonprofits. Like, has your definition of like what service means evolved over the years? And is there any advice you would give in that way to young people around like what service can mean in the foundation of both a career, but also that idea of giving back to your community?
This can be a larger societal discussion, but I mean, I grew up in the church, and I realized the older I get, the less that's a common thing. I don't really care what anybody's religion or anything like that. It's just more of I feel like certain things I learned about service were ingrained to me every Sunday, whether I like to be there or not. And I feel like some of those same things, I don't think I would have learned some of those things elsewhere in school or otherwise. When I think about the idea of service, the idea of work, I think a lot of things have come back to what's in it for me. I think that's always been an undercurrent of everything. Instead of that being the third or fourth or fifth question that you ask, it is the first, second, and third question that you're asking. And I think that's like where somebody will still do the volunteer cleanup. But the first three questions was, what's in it for me? Can I get this for my hours? And will I get to take time off from work because I'm doing this? And then it's, who all gonna be there? Who are we helping? What's the organization? Where is it at? Kind of thing. But like the first three questions are generally about like, how is this going to affect me versus, oh, I would love to do a beach cleanup. When is it? And then doing all that. And then it's, oh, I could get time off from work for this? Oh, that's really good. And I think those are the kinds of things that I think about that have just completely flipped. When I think about it in terms of like that, where it's like, yeah, well, when I think about service and work and how they're kind of all being tied in, it is in a way where it's like, what is in it for you? Like, why would you want to help? I mean, like, listen, like I'm in LA, like if somebody said, hey, we want some kids to help the homeless, and the kid said, well, what the hell is the city doing? What are we supposed to do?
Say?
Yeah, like what's in it for me? Like why should I go out there and put myself in a situation to go? And it's like, oh, because you want to be a good person? Ooh, that sounds crazy. Like it sounds like where it's, I get it that like I would love for it to be, we're gonna help because we're Angelinos and we care. Like, yeah, of course you care about the city, but if you feel like the city ain't really care about you for a while, then I mean, like I think it's a lot of those kinds of feelings where it's,
that's real.
I don't know how to combat that in a real way, other than like, quite honestly, I mean, like, and this is gonna sound crazy, it's like making it a trend, making it popular to help people again. I think people like doing things that other people are doing, and if they saw more people doing that, I think we'd be moving towards a better path. Like, that's just me. I see how many people go and protest. You know, like, if we get like half of those people to, you know, go volunteer somewhere for that same amount of time, you know, like it'd be all right. I think that's where my head goes to. Just
Yeah, I think we, definitely, find there's definitely some humor there, but it's also so much reality to that is that as a young person, just in people in general, we've sort of made this pivot into this idea that maybe to say there's always been there, this idea of what's in it for me. And it's so real. And I enjoyed this conversation, Q, in so many ways. And it definitely can go even more into the philosophical aspects of both service and in so many ways in which we've seen things shift and maybe we're in a reality that things there needs to be a movement on TikTok around service, and maybe we'll kind of see some movement. But I want to give a moment for sure, as you sort of alluded there in some ways around shining a light on particular things. Part of the segment of this conversation, we are really intentional about just this idea of giving a space to shine a light on someone or service titan who has had a small or big impact on you. I know me growing up in Detroit, it was always good to hear, somebody from the neighborhood I looked up to or a family, whatever it is, to just say, I see you. I just want to shine a light on whether it's something small or big. So through this podcast, we want to give a space for people to do that. So Q, is there someone in your life that you would like to shine the light on? And again, that's in a small way or a big way they've had an impact on you that you'd like to recognize here today for our audience.
I have had a lot of help, a lot of supporters, a lot of people that have had my back throughout my life so that I can just make it to the next step. I would like to highlight my 5th grade teacher, Miss Elise Martin. Is she my favorite teacher of all time? Probably. And I've had great teachers, so that's no disrespect to any of the other ones that might be listening. But Miss Martin in 5th grade saw something in me that to this day, I still don't quite know. But I do know that whenever I have any moments of self-doubt, I do say, but Miss Martin knows you can do it, kind of thing. And that's, I have a family. I got a grandmother and everything. But again, it was something that she saw in me that I still am like, well, it's still there. I don't know if I don't know if it's already come out or anything like that, but it's still there. In 5th grade, I've always thought I was smart, lazy, perhaps. And she sent home one day to my grandparents all of my classwork, and it was sloppy. It was like sloppily written, and it was correct, but it was just sloppy. And her whole thing was, this is the start of something that's not going to change if he doesn't change it right now. And I know that he can be smart. Now, at that time, she gave me the great Ben Carson's book, Gifted Hands, to read.
That book did some things.
Right. Listen, you look, it's one of those, man, like, man. So, but before then, it was, man, this is Ben Carson. She gave me that book, read that book, and that book changed, I don't want to say it changed my life, but it put in perspective, don't throw away your gift. When she sent that sloppy handwriting home, my grandparents made me write like 2,000 words neatly about just rewriting my stuff, just getting it neatly. Now, my handwriting today, thank God to computers, doesn't really matter. So I got a great signature, though, because this was back when we had to write in cursive as well. So I don't know if like this, all these things. Like, I don't know if kids remember that. Like my print wasn't bad. It was that they were forcing us to write in cursive for everything. Right. It was ridiculous. Like, of course, cursive is like by nature hard to. I'm sorry that we're getting off topic, but either way, Miss Martin made sure that I was taking the time to develop my gifts, and that is what I really, really know for myself, at least, is the most important part of my development in my career and everything like that. Everything else is cool, but taking the time to develop my gifts whenever I have the opportunity is the thing that has really propelled me to where I'm at. So I do want to say thank you to Miss Martin for that, because, again, 5th grade, sitting somebody down, a 5th grader, and just saying, like, I know that you can do more. You're just not taking the time. When I think about why people's lives aren't the way they want them to be, or why people are frustrated and stuck, or why you can't get over this hump, I usually come back to that place of like, am I taking enough time to develop my gifts? Or am I just trying to push forward? and I haven't even got to the next level yet, you know? And again, so like in my career, I'm stuck at a dead end job and damn, I really want to get a raise, but what am I doing? Am I taking enough time to develop my gifts? No. Get a Salesforce certification. Get to the next time. Man, am I taking enough time to develop my gifts? No. Get a project management certification. Like, you know, like just taking the time to continuously develop, because if what you want to do is anything, it will behoove you to be better at the things that you need to be better at. You know, so like if you want to help people, it would behoove you to be good at helping yourself. If you want to do finance, it would be good to keep track of your own money. You know, and I think a lot of people forget in their desire to help everybody else is to once again take a step back and just say, hey, am I taking time to develop my own skills? Because the more I develop my skills, the more I'm going to be able to do. And that's kind of where I really, again, 5th grade, Miss Martin kind of set my life on a different trajectory. Because up until that point, I was like, yeah, I'm cool with being smart. And then she was like, yeah, but you could be like great. And it was, but do I want to be great? Yes, you want to. And I think ever since then that's always been my focus. Well, how can I get better? You know, and I really attribute that to her. And again, I've been able to have lunch with her since, like, she came out to California. I still have a relationship with Miss Martin. Hey, Miss Martin. And again, I think just instilling that in a young Black man that's not playing sports, because, you know, I think I'm sorry if I'm rambling, but I think it's easy to do when somebody's playing sports. You know, it's be the best you can be, like, but what do you tell a kid that's not playing sports, ain't really interested? Like, hey, he watches sports, but he's not interested in being the next Jordan. Like, where's the motivation and push for those kids? And again, I think Miss Martin put that into me. We're just like, why be good when you can be great? Why be the second smartest when you can be the smartest in the class? You know, and I think I really attribute that to her. So thank you, Miss Martin.
Thank you so much for sharing that. And also, it's that Penn Carson book. You took me back there for a minute, you know, what that meant for, you know, countless, you know, young people. And I can say that shows up in my story a little bit as well. We can maybe talk about that another time. Again, Q, truly thank you for taking the time to join the podcast and for sharing your insights and experiences. I also want to ask you, for our audience, is there a way that they can stay connected with you? I want to definitely give you the space to share any handles or any projects that you're currently working on that you think our audience might be interested in tapping into or learning more about.
Follow me on LinkedIn. I mean, hopefully we can link that in the show notes. But if you look up Q Brown, actually on LinkedIn, you'll be able to find me. If you are in the Los Angeles area, or if you are somebody that is interested in the power of libraries and you want to get connected, we got a lot of cool things going on at the Los Angeles Public Library, and we would love to get you involved. My favorite thing to do is to get you to come down for a tour in person, because again, I think once you see it in person, it's hard to not come back. If anybody's interested in getting involved with the Los Angeles Public Library or libraries in general, I would love to chat.
Listeners, be sure to connect with Q, both on LinkedIn. I have to say, even myself, I had to take you up on that in the library, me and my 13-year-old. And also want to kind of conclude and say, until the next time, keep the conversation flowing, keep service front and center, and continue shining bright in your community. This is Service Titans, and thank you for listening.
Thank you for joining us as we explored the inspiring journeys of Black men in AmeriCorps. Keep the conversation going by connecting with us on social media. Until next time, stay committed, stay courageous, and keep striving to make a difference. This is Service Titans, where every story told is a testament to the power of service. Thank you for listening.